This isn't about confidence. If it were, this title wouldn't exist. Because the belief you brought into this video is already limiting you. The belief that acting as if you are the best means pretending, performing, overcompensating for something you don't actually have. That belief is wrong. And it has been quietly training you to stay smaller than your capacity. Most people hear this idea and immediately soften it. They dilute it. They turn it into positive thinking so it feels safe. That is not what this is. Act as if you are the best is not about arrogance. And it is not about comparison. Comparison is the distraction. It keeps you watching others instead of governing yourself. The real problem is not that you think too highly of yourself. It's that you keep waiting for permission to hold a higher standard. You wait until results arrive. You wait until confidence feels earned. You wait until someone else confirms it's okay to move differently. And while you wait, your behavior stays negotiable. Your posture stays uncertain. Your decisions stay reactive. Not because you lack ability, but because your internal authority is unclaimed. Most people believe identity follows proof, that you become certain after success arrives. That belief quietly guarantees delay. Because life does not reward potential. It responds to posture, to standards, to the way you carry yourself when nothing external is forcing you. Acting as if you are the best is not about convincing anyone else. It is about removing hesitation from your own actions. But that meaning is rarely understood. So the phrase gets dismissed, labeled arrogant, filed away as motivational noise. And something important is missed. The standard you allow yourself to hold determines the behavior you tolerate. And the behavior you tolerate becomes your ceiling. Most people never consciously choose that ceiling. They inherit it. They adjust to it. They defend it. And they never notice the moment they decided to live beneath their capacity. By default, most people think they understand what holds them back. They say it's confidence. They say it's skill. They say it's experience. That understanding feels accurate because it sounds logical. It just doesn't reach deep enough. What actually limits people is not what they lack. It's what they tolerate internally. They tolerate hesitation. They tolerate self-questioning. They tolerate waiting until they feel ready. And that tolerance becomes a rule. From the outside, it looks like humility. From the inside, it feels responsible. But functionally, it keeps authority unclaimed. People assume standards come after success. That you earn the right to carry yourself differently once results appear. Once proof arrives. Once certainty feels justified. That assumption reverses the order. Standards are not rewards. They are prerequisites. The way you speak. The way you decide. The way you move through ordinary moments. These are not reactions to success. They are signals that either invite it or repel it. Most people believe acting as if means lying to yourself. Pretending to be something you're not. Projecting confidence you haven't earned. That misunderstanding keeps the principle at arm's length. Because the mind prefers explanations that protect comfort. If a standard feels uncomfortable, it gets labeled unrealistic. If posture feels unfamiliar, it gets labeled fake. This is how ceilings are preserved. The real issue is not arrogance versus humility. That is a false debate. The real issue is internal permission. Do you allow yourself to behave in alignment with your highest standard? Before external evidence demands it? Or only after? Most people wait. They wait for confidence to arrive. They wait for validation. They wait for circumstances to remove doubt. And in that waiting, they practice hesitation daily. What you practice becomes natural. What becomes natural becomes invisible. And what is invisible is rarely questioned. This is why people can work hard for years, without ever changing how they carry themselves. They improve skills. They gather information. but their internal posture remains unchanged. They still approach opportunities cautiously. They still downplay themselves. They still move as if permission must be granted. Not because they are incapable, because they never examined the rule they were living by. The idea of acting as if you are the best is not asking you to inflate yourself. It is pointing at something much quieter. The standard you operate from comes before the results you experience. But that truth is usually missed because it doesn't feel dramatic and it doesn't flatter insecurity. And the full weight of it has still not been revealed. There is a principle underneath this idea that removes the confusion. It is not motivational. It is not psychological encouragement. It is structural. You do not rise to the level of your ability. You settle at the level of the standard you enforce. Most people think acting as if you are the best is about confidence. It isn't. Confidence is an outcome. Standards are a cause. The best people in any field are not driven by belief in themselves. They are governed by non-negotiable standards of behavior. They decide how they speak before they speak. They decide how they prepare before they feel like preparing. They decide how they show up before results reward them for it. This is where the misunderstanding lives. People wait for internal certainty before changing external behavior. But behavior is what trains certainty. When you act beneath your highest standard, the mind adapts downward. When you act at a higher standard, the mind is forced to follow. This is not arrogance. Arrogance compares. Standards do not. Comparison looks sideways. Standards look inward. Acting as if you are the best does not mean believing you are superior. It means refusing to perform beneath what you know is possible for you. The cause and effect is simple and unforgiving. Lower standards produce hesitation. Hesitation produces inconsistency. Inconsistency produces results that reinforce doubt. Higher standards produce alignment. Alignment produces repetition. Repetition produces results that stabilize identity. Nothing mystical is happening here. No pretending. No self-deception. Only behavior shaping belief instead of waiting for belief to appear first. This is why people who fake confidence often outperform people who feel confident. They are not faking belief. They are practicing posture. Posture precedes proof. Daily actions are where this principle lives. Not in speeches. Not in moments of courage. And how carefully you prepare when no one will see it. And how clearly you speak when it would be easier to soften. And how you correct yourself when you fall short instead of explaining it away. These moments are invisible, which is why they are powerful. Discipline, at this level, becomes identity, not effort. You stop asking, "Am I good enough to act this way?" and start operating from, "This is how I act." That shift is quiet, and it is incomplete by design. Because standards alone do not sustain themselves. They require structure. They require daily containment. Without that structure, even high standards erode over time. They become aspirations instead of rules. So while the principle is now clear, the application is not finished. You can see the law. You cannot yet feel its weight. That weight comes from structure, from repetition, from systems that prevent backsliding when emotion fades. That layer has not been addressed yet. And until it is, standards remain fragile. Number 1. Establish a non-negotiable standard of conduct. Standards fail when they are emotional. They hold only when they are procedural. This matters internally because the mind obeys rules more easily than intentions. Intentions invite negotiation. Rules eliminate it. The identity consequence is immediate containment. You stop drifting between who you respect and who you excuse. A simple daily example is preparation. You prepare before you feel ready. You prepare even when the outcome is uncertain. The tension appears as resistance, a feeling that effort should wait for confidence. Do not relieve it. That pressure is the standard installing itself. Number 2. Carry yourself as if performance is expected. Most people perform only when observed. They relax when the pressure disappears. This matters because identity forms in unobserved moments. When nothing is demanded, the truth shows. The identity consequence is internal alignment. You no longer need urgency to access discipline. A simple daily example is posture. How you sit, how you speak, how you move through routine interactions. Resistance shows up as casualness, a subtle lowering of seriousness. That lowering is the signal. Correct it without emotion. Number 3. Decide before emotion arrives. Emotion is a poor authority. It changes quickly and justifies inconsistency. This matters internally because emotion seeks comfort. Standards seek coherence. The identity consequence is stability. Your behavior stops swinging with mood. A simple daily example is scheduling. Work begins at a fixed time, not when energy feels right. The tension appears as irritation, a sense of being constrained. That constraint is structure doing its job. Number 4. Eliminate self-explanation. Most people talk themselves out of standards quietly. They explain. They rationalize. They soften. This matters because explanation preserves ego while weakening discipline. It feels intelligent. It functions as avoidance. The identity consequence is authority. You stop negotiating with yourself. A simple daily example is correction. When you fall short, you correct immediately. No commentary. Resistance shows up as storytelling. Reasons. Context. Do not engage it. Number 5. Close the loop every day. Unfinished standards erode credibility. Not externally. Internally. This matters because self-trust is cumulative. Each unclosed loop subtracts from it. The identity consequence is self-respect. You begin to believe your own expectations again. A simple daily example is review. What met the standard? What did not? What is corrected tomorrow? The tension is honesty. Seeing gaps without justification. Do not soften it. Do not dramatize it. This framework does not make you feel powerful. It makes you precise. Precision removes chaos. Chaos is what most people mistake for freedom. Notice what this structure does not do. It does not motivate. It does not inspire. It contains. Containment is uncomfortable for undisciplined identity. It feels restrictive, predictable, quiet. That discomfort is the filter. Those who associate freedom with impulse will reject this quickly. Those who associate freedom with control will stay. The framework holds standards in place. When emotion fades, when novelty disappears, when no one is watching. And that is where acting as if you are the best stops being an idea and becomes behavior. But behavior alone does not complete the transformation, because the hardest part is not installing structure. It is living inside it long enough for identity to reorganize around it. That layer is deeper, and it is where most people exit. What follows after structure is not momentum. It is resistance in a quieter form. Days begin to feel repetitive. Progress feels less visible. The seriousness remains, but the novelty disappears. This is where most people misread the signal. They assume boredom means something is wrong. They assume resistance means the standard was too high. They assume silence means the effort stopped working. None of that is true. Boredom is not failure. It is the absence of stimulation. And stimulation was never the goal. Discipline, at this depth, becomes self-respect. Self-respect is not pride. It is not confidence. It is not emotional certainty. It is the calm knowledge that you do not abandon yourself. When comfort becomes available, Every time you maintain a standard, without excitement, without pressure, without reward, you reinforce a quiet internal agreement. I do what I said I would do. That agreement compounds. Comfort works in the opposite direction. It offers immediate relief and charges a delayed cost. The cost is subtle. A slight erosion of seriousness, a softening of standards, a growing habit of exceptions. No single exception destroys discipline, but repeated permission does. This is why comfort is dangerous. Not because it feels good, because it feels justified. Quiet consistency is the antidote. Not intensity, not sacrifice. Consistency is dulled by design. It removes drama. It removes negotiation. It removes emotional highs and lows. And in doing so, it builds something most people never experience. Reliability. Reliability with yourself changes how effort feels. You no longer need to convince yourself. You no longer need emotional alignment. You move because movement is who you are now. Keeping promises to yourself becomes heavier. Not emotionally. Structurally. You stop making promises casually, because breaking them costs something you now value. This is how overachievement actually forms. Not through pushing harder, but through eliminating internal leakage. Energy stops being wasted on debate. Attention stops being scattered by doubt. Action becomes simpler because fewer options are allowed. Identity begins to reorganize around standards. You stop saying, "I'm trying to be disciplined," and start operating as someone who is. This shift is not exciting. It is stabilizing. The mind resists this at first, because stability feels like limitation to an undisciplined identity. But limitation is what produces leverage. The best performers are not free in every direction. They are constrained in the right ones. They do not ask how little they can get away with. They ask what standard they refuse to drop below. That refusal is discipline. Discipline is not self-punishment. It is self-respect expressed through behavior. And self-respect compounds faster than motivation ever could. Days stack. Weeks align. 90 days pass. Not with fireworks. With alignment. By this point, acting as if you are the best no longer feels like acting. It feels like maintenance. You correct quickly. You recover without drama. You do not spiral when something slips. Because identity is no longer fragile. This is the moment most people never reach. Not because it is hard. Because it is quiet. There is no audience here. No validation. No rush. Only you and the standard you chose to live under. And that is why it works. But this is still not the end. Because the final shift is not about discipline itself. It is about how responsibility feels once discipline is no longer forced. That is where certainty settles. And that is where this closes. Now look ahead, not at how you feel today, but at who you are becoming. Not louder. Not more confident in a visible way. Just more settled. You no longer hesitate before simple decisions. You no longer lower your standard to match your mood. You no longer need permission to act with seriousness. Responsibility feels different now. Not heavy. Not dramatic. Clear. When you act as if you are the best, nothing external changes first. Your posture changes. Your tolerance changes. Your patience with excuses disappears. And quietly, life responds. Not because you demanded more. Because you required more of yourself. Control does not feel empowering in the emotional sense. It feels stabilizing. Grounded. Predictable. You know what you will do tomorrow because you know who you are now. There is no pressure to prove anything. No need to compare. No need to announce progress. You move with certainty because your behavior agrees with your standard. That agreement is rare. And it is powerful. Most people spend their lives trying to feel confident enough to act. You stopped waiting. You acted according to the standard you chose to live under. That is why this works. Not because you became better than others, but because you stopped betraying your own capacity. 90 days from now, the difference will not be obvious to everyone, but it will be undeniable to you. You will trust your decisions. You will respect your effort. You will recognize yourself in your actions again. And that recognition brings calm. Not excitement. Not urgency. Quiet certainty. That certainty does not fade. It compounds. Because once authority is installed, you do not need motivation to maintain it. You simply live up to it.